Welcome to the first episode of Music Lessons for Distance Learning by the Bakersfield Symphony Orchestra. We're starting off today with a movement of a piece of music by a man named Antonio Vivaldi. As you can tell from the picture, this is not a modern composer. Vivaldi lived from 1678 to 1741. The piece of music we'll be looking at is a violin concerto called Spring. Now, some of you know what a concerto is, and you may even be familiar with this specific piece of music, but some of you probably don't, so if you already know this, be patient for just a minute. A concerto is a piece of music written for one solo instrument with orchestral accompaniment. In the case of Spring, Vivaldi wrote for a solo violin accompanied by a string orchestra. Concertos usually have 3 movements, and we'll be looking at just the first movement of this concerto today. Spring is actually one of a set of 4 concertos Vivaldi wrote called The Four Seasons. As you have probably guessed, the other 3 concertos in the set are titled Summer, Fall, and Winter. Each concerto is a musical representation of that season. Now I'm going to ask you to do something, and I want you to actually do it. Get a piece of paper or your phone or something to write on and describe the season of spring. You can talk about it with your parents or a sibling if you want to brainstorm with somebody else. That's totally fine. But write down what it is that makes spring, spring. You can write it in a paragraph or a bullet point list or however you want, but pause the video right now and do it. Okay, I'm assuming you are all stellar students and you actually did what I asked. Now, here are some things I associate with spring. Sunshine, warmer weather, rain, new growth, green grass, flowers on trees. Now, these are not the right answers. This is my own personal list of things that I associate with the season of spring. You probably have some of the same things on your list, but you might have some different things as well, and that's okay. Vivaldi had his own list of things, except instead of writing a list or a paragraph, he wrote a poem, and then wrote his music to mirror the poetry. So let's take a look at the poetry he used to write the first movement of the Spring Concerto. Festive spring has arrived. Vivaldi has a theme in his music that represents spring itself, and that's what he uses to represent the beginning of the poem. Let's listen. The poem goes on. The birds salute with their happy song. Here's how Vivaldi depicted birdsong in his music. The next bit of the poem reads, "And the brooks, caressed by little zephyrs, flow with a sweet murmur." Now, zephyr is another word for a breeze. So if you can imagine a brook or a creek, and the water is being stirred by a gentle breeze, that's the image Vivaldi is going for. Here's how he shows this idea in his music. The sky is covered with a black mantle, and thunder and lightning announce a storm. I know we don't get a lot of thunderstorms in Kern County, but imagine a heavy rainstorm with thunder and lightning. Here's how Vivaldi depicts the thunderstorm. When they are silent, the birds return to their lovely song. At the end of the piece, after the storm clears up, Vivaldi brings us right back to the spring theme he used in the beginning. Now we're going to have a listen to the whole movement. You'll see pictures to represent each of Vivaldi's themes that represent elements of his poetry. Try to pay attention to any pattern, hint hint, you might see in the repetition of certain themes. Did you notice any pattern as you were listening? The spring theme returned several times. If we write out the pattern of how the themes appear in the music, we have spring, birds, spring, water, spring, thunderstorm, spring. If we change the theme names to letters, we have A, B, A, C, A, D, A. This is rondo form, where one theme keeps coming back in between new bits of music. I hope you enjoyed listening to and learning about spring. I have some follow-up activities for you. If this was assigned to you by your teacher, they may have assigned you some of these questions specifically, but not all of them, so be sure to check your assignment. Your options are: 1. Write your own poem about spring or another one of the seasons. 2. Draw a picture that represents the whole first movement of spring. That's one picture containing all the different themes from the poem and music: spring, birds, water, and thunderstorm. 3. Listen to the second and third movements of the Spring Concerto. You can easily find recordings on YouTube. 4. Write a description of what the music would sound like if you wrote a piece of music about spring. What kind of music would it be? What kinds of things would you describe with the music? Would there be words? What instruments would be playing? And if you are an instrumentalist, you could also create a melody that represents your idea of spring that you can actually play on your own instrument. 5. Research one of the other four-season concertos, summer, fall, or winter, and you can just pick one movement from one of them, like we did with spring. Read Vivaldi's poem and listen to the music, and write a short description answering the following questions. What does the poem talk about? How does the music depict what is in the poem?